Hello folks! Welcome to SCP Deep Dive and welcome to another video on this lovely channel. I still have my cat in this room, so there's gonna be some background noise. Apologies for that. But yeah, if you haven't watched my first video, hi, I'm your host Pluto, and this is the channel SCP Deep Dive, where I'm gonna be talking about and discussing just SCPs in general, because I love SCPs. As usual, a disclaimer that none of these SCPs are mine, none of the information is mine, and all credits for the SCPs and their information goes to the SCP Foundation. I will link them down in the description if you want to go check them out, because none of this is mine, okay? I'm just a random teenager talking about them because they're fun. Today's SCP that we're going to be discussing is SCP-106, which is quite a creepy one, but also quite a cool one regarding its backstory and everything, and I thought it would be a fun one to discuss for today. And yeah, let's get into it. Its item number is SCP-106, or 106 as I'm going to be referring to it because it's faster. Its object class is Keter, which means that it is either very difficult to contain, very dangerous to contain, or it's simply a very dangerous SCP, which SCP-106 is. And the special containment procedures have been edited multiple times. Revision 11.6, Revision 11.7, and now the one standing is Revision 11.8. No physical interaction with SCP-106 is allowed at any time. All physical interaction must be approved by no less than a 2/3 vote from O5 Command. Any such interaction must be undertaken in an AR2 maximum security sites after a general non-essential staff evacuation. All staff, research, security, class D, etc. are to remain at least 60 meters away from the containment cell at all times, except in the event of breach events. SCP-106 is to be contained in a sealed container comprised of lead-lined steel. The container will be sealed within 40 layers of identical material, each layer separated by no less than 36 centimeters of empty space. Support struts between layers are to be randomly spaced. Container is to remain suspended no less than 60 centimeters from any surface by ELO 2D electromagnetic supports. Secondary containment areas to be comprised of 16 spherical cells, each filled with various fluids and a random assembly of surfaces and supports. Secondary containment is to be fitted with light systems capable of flooding the entire assembly with no less than 80,000 lumens of light instantly with no direct human involvement. Both containment areas are to remain under 24-hour surveillance. My cat has found the beanbag chair. Any corrosion observed on any containment cell surfaces, staff members, or other site locations within 200 meters of SCP-106 are to be reported to site security immediately. Any object or personnel lost to SCP-106 are to be deemed missing or KIA. No recovery attempts are to be made under any circumstances. There is a note. Continued research and observation have shown that when faced with highly complex or random assemblies of structures, SCP-106 can be confused, showing a marked delay on entry and exit from said structure. SCP-106 has also shown an aversion to direct sudden light. This is not manifested in any form of physical damage, but a rapid exit into the pocket dimension generated on solid surfaces. These observations, along with those of lead aversion and liquid confusion, have reduced the general escape incidence by 43%. The primary cells have also been effective in recovery incidents requiring recall protocol. Observation is ongoing. That is... Description. SCP-106 appears to be an elderly humanoid with general appearance of advanced decomposition. This appearance may vary, but the rotting quality is observed in all forms. SCP-106 is not exceptionally agile and will remain motionless for days at a time, waiting for prey. SCP-106 is also capable of scaling any vertical surface and can remain suspended upside down indefinitely. When attacking, SCP-106 will attempt to incapacitate prey by damaging major organs, muscle groups, or tendons, and then pull disabled prey into its pocket dimension. SCP-106 appears to prefer human prey items in the 10 to 25 years of age bracket. SCP-106 causes a corrosion effect in all solid matter it touches, engaging a physical breakdown in material several seconds after contact. This is observed as rusting, rotting, and cracking of materials, and the creation of a black, mucus-like substance similar to the material coating SCP-106. This effect is particularly detrimental to living tissues and is assumed to be a pre-digestion action. Corrosion continues for 6 hours after contact, after which the effects seem to burn out. SCP-106 is capable of passing through solid matter, leaving behind a large patch of its corrosive mucus, which is why it's keter, because it's hard to contain, because it can literally go through walls. SCP-106 is able to vanish inside solid matter, entering what is assumed to be a form of pocket dimension. SCP-106 is then able to exit this dimension from any point connected to the initial entry point, for example, entering the inner wall of the room and exiting the outer wall, entering a wall and exiting from the ceiling. It is unknown if this is the point of origin for SCP-106 or a simple lair created by SCP-106. Say hi? Okay. Limited observation of this pocket dimension has shown it to be comprised mostly of halls and rooms, with data expunged entry, which is a lovely sentence to say. This activity can continue for days, with some subjected individuals being released for the expressive purpose of hunting, recapture, or another data expunged. Due to the exceedingly difficult to contain nature of SCP-106, SCP is to be reviewed every 3 months or during a post-breach incident. Physical restraints are impossible, and direct physical damage appear to have no effect on SCP-106. The current SCP, as of a certain date, revolves around basic observation and immediate response. Previous, more proactive and special containment procedures have been recalled due to the event of a certain breach. Which is all blurred, which is lovely. Notes on behavior. SCP-106 appears to go through long periods of dormancy, in which it will remain completely motionless for up to 3 months. The cause for this is unknown, however, it has been shown that this appears to be used as a lulling tactic. Can you stop? SCP-106 will emerge from this state in a very agitated state and will attack and abduct staff and cause gross damage to its containment cell and the site at large. SCP-106 appears to be hunt and attack based on desire, not hunger. SCP-106 will attack and collect multiple prey items during a hunting behavior event, keeping many alive in the pocket dimension for extended periods of time. SCP-106 has no determinable limit and appears to collect a random number of prey items during an event. Which is kind of scary actually, because like if he has a limit, you could be like, oh, this many people and we're done. But no. He doesn't have a limit. That's scary as fuck. The inner dimension accessed by SCP-106 appears to be only accessible by SCP-106. Recording and transmission devices have been shown to still operate inside this dimension, though they are very degraded. It appears that SCP-106 will play with captured prey and appears to have full control of time, space, and perception of time in this dimension. SCP-106 appears data expunged, which tells us a lot, obviously. In the event of a breach event by SCP-106, a human within the 10 to 25 years of age bracket will be prepped for recall, with the compromised containment cell being replaced and restored for use. When the cell is ready, the lure subject will be injured, preferably via the breakage of a long bone, such as the femur, or severing a major tendon, such as the Achilles tendon. If you don't know what that is, the femur bone is your thigh bone, and the Achilles tendon is the tendon in your foot. Lure subject will then be placed in the prepped cell, and the sound emitted by said subject will be transmitted over the site public address system. SCP-106 will typically begin to gravitate towards the lure subject within 10 to 15 minutes after hearing the subject. Should SCP-106 not respond to the initial broadcast, additional physical trauma is to be administered to the lure subject at a 20-minute intervals. Until SCP-106 responds, multiple lure subjects may be used in the case of major breach events. SCP-106 will typically enter a dormant state after finishing with the lure subject. So that's so sad. If mate doesn't react at once, they just get more physical trauma. The fuck? Okay, I'm gonna be showing a photo of both SCP-106, which is it's a really creepy, slimy old man. So if you just don't want like a gory picture, skip to this time in the video, and I'm not gonna be showing the picture of the released subject because I don't think YouTube would like that, and I don't think any of you would like that either. If you really want to know, go to the SCP Foundation. Okay, there is not a lot more actually on SCP-106. I have found more information on its backstory. So this is going to be the backstory of SCP-106. Corporal Lawrence. The first is a tale regarding a man by the name of Lawrence, a corporal during the First World War. Lawrence was described as a plain man without any noteworthy features, whose voice, appearance, and behavior made him come off as bland. None in the trench Lawrence was in could recall a time when the man raised his voice, either in anger or in joy. Instead, he would keep to himself, making no mention of his past. Not even the group of soldiers he first arrived with knew anything about him. While not violent or malicious, Lawrence was not without fault. Often he would be found staring for longer than was comfortable at others. He barely, if at all, slept, and in the few times he was seen doing so, others would hear him talk near constantly. One time, a fellow bunkmate heard Lawrence mutter his daughter's name, even though he never told him. Despite his reserved manner, or because of it, many of Lawrence's fellow soldiers were unnerved by him. For wherever the man went, a sickly sweet stench, the smell of rot, followed. All who shared bunks with him suffered trench foot, and before long rumors began to circulate, many having come to believe Lawrence was cursed. Eventually, after a prolonged period of silence from the enemy trench, Lawrence and 14 others were sent across no man's land to check and see if the trench had been abandoned. Once they arrived, the group was greeted to a horrible sight. Every single enemy soldier was dead, each having been savagely mutilated. The walls and corpses covered in a foul-smelling black sludge. Bodies and body parts all so violently maimed that even the hardest of the men were soon vomiting. Amongst all this, Lawrence and a fellow soldier discovered in one room a small hole filled with the same disgusting slime that covered the dead. When Lawrence crouched down to investigate, he slipped and fell in head first, moments later crawling back out drenched in the black slime. Once the group returned to their own trench and the story of what they saw was told, it was here that many began to notice a change in Lawrence. Gone was the quiet and reserved man. In his place was a person who would greet people with a wild smile as he rambled about destruction, pleasure, and the joy of enclosed spaces. When some tried to silence Lawrence, all he would do is grin wider. A fellow soldier awoke once to find Lawrence hanging over him, eyes wide and glowing white. The next day, the soldier was found entangled in barbed wire and with his intestines outspread in a neat manner. By the time reinforcements came to relieve those in the trench, many were dead or dying from a mysterious sickness. Men who went to bed healthy awake to find their flesh rotting straight off the bone. A sergeant was found engulfed in the unusually aggressive rats who attacked several others before his mostly eaten corpse could be recovered. Of all these people, Lawrence was the only one who survived, being transferred to a French hospital, at which he assaulted a nurse, resulting in her losing 3 fingers and an eye. Lawrence, mate, get your shit together. From here, he would spend most of his time rambling to other patients about chasing people in dark halls. A few times he would disappear altogether, returning as if nothing had happened. When asked where he went and how, Lawrence would respond by singing "My Bonnie Lies" over the sea in a monotone voice until he was left alone. A foul and musty stench soon filled the ward he was in, during which he would spend most of his time humming and rambling off the names of those around him, many patients dying from the same rotting sickness that plagued the trench he came from. One day, by means none are sure of, Lawrence and 18 others vanished. The ward they had been in covered in an oily black substance, this black goo causing all it touched to rot and corrode. One nurse then flipped over a mattress, finding under it a black hole. Inside said hole, a perfect circle made from the teeth of 17 men. After this, Lawrence was never heard from again, the story of the cursed trench being brushed off as stories as the war continued. Even still, more stories were told of men vanishing, being found alive yet horribly disfigured, of deaths that could not be explained, and of a shadowy figure stalking the war-torn countryside. There is a second origin story, so we're going to be discussing that one as well. The second origin story of SCP-106 is much more tragic than that of the first and is found within the article SCP-3001 and the tale Until Death. SCP-3001 is described as a parallel dimension which is said to be nothing but an infinite darkness, devoid of any matter, where the laws of physics and reality are either heavily altered or do not exist at all. One within SCP-3001 is incapable of dying, whether it be from hunger, thirst, or self-inflicted wounds. An experiment led by Foundation scientist Robert Scranton, a highly ranking respected researcher who created the Scranton technology, with nullified the effects of reality warping anomalies, went horribly wrong, creating what is called a Class C broken entry wormhole that transported Scranton and a portion of a control panel into SCP-3001. Here, Scranton remained for almost 6 years, unable to escape, spending most of his time recording his experience on the control panel. As time went on, Scranton's sanity began to wane, loneliness causing him to start referring to the control panel as Red due to the blinking red light on it, speaking to the machine as though it were a person. During one conversation with the Red, Scranton notices that his body has begun to lose its solidity due to the low Hume concentration of this dimension, meaning that his hands were able to phase right through himself, this and an inability to feel pain causing him to begin mutilating himself. Later on, Scranton is suddenly overcome with an intense pain, which he theorizes to be SCP-3001 beginning to break down, and him with it. Soon after, Red shuts down, leaving Scranton in total darkness for 9 months. When the panel reactivates, Scranton admits that during this time he attempted suicide well over 184 times, all failing. At first oblivious to the damage inflicted upon himself, when Scranton notices that the infinite void SCP-3001 has now begun to close in, he is able to see the results of mutilation, screaming to the panel, "There's so much gone." After this, Scranton's speech devolves into mostly incoherent mumbling, during which he begs for Red and his wife Anna to give him their body parts, at one point howling, "Anna, give me your brain, I only have half." Following this, Scranton sobs for forgiveness for being so scary, crying out Anna's name one last time before the panel turns to normal reality with the tales of madness it recorded with it. This SCP also has its own tale, in which 106 first appears, attacking his wife and then a security guard, during which Anna manages to evade 106 for a time, even escaping from its pocket dimension, which had taken the form of her old apartment and an activating alarm. When SCP-106 catches up to her, it pauses briefly, entranced by the flashing red light klaxons, before the perspective is changed to it, revealing to be a malformed Robert Scranton, who had become twisted from his time in SCP-3001, and ever since had been falling apart, rebuilding itself, rebuilding its world for her. Finally reunited with his long-lost wife, SCP-106 passionately kisses her, its touch proving lethal as it drags her back into its realm. This is a scary one. Like, I knew it was scary. Obviously. Damn. That is one creepy fella. So, it's either this weird dude who got stuck in a trench and like this black hole thing, or it's this dude who just was trying to do research and got trapped in another realm. Both are terrifying. Both are very sad. What do I think of this SCP? I think SCP-106 is very interesting. I think that the stories of his origins, I think that they're just really cool. I know that sounds kind of wrong because he's not cool. He's terrifying and he's gross. But just in general, I think that or it, honestly, but if we're going by like Corporal Lawrence and Robert Scranton, it's a he. It's fascinating how SCPs come to an origin and come to exist, and I think that his story is one of the most interesting ones that I've encountered so far, it being a normal human developing into such a monster, and I think that that's incredibly interesting. And I hope you guys liked this video. I hope you guys liked today's topic. If you have any requests for a specific SCP that you want me to talk about, let me know, because I will probably do it. And yeah, I hope the volume is right on this one, because when I checked on my other device, the volume was very low, but then on my phone it was fine. So let me know if this is like correct, if it's very loud, if it's very quiet, because I can't really determine it on my own. And yeah, like if you enjoyed this video or not, and subscribe if you want to stay updated, and comment down below if there's anything that I can do better or anything you want to see on this channel. And I hope you guys had a good time. I know I did. Bye bye.